Taking a look at the aftermath, this is what the Senate wing of Capitol Hill looks like now after yesterday's riot. The chaos in the building leaves one of the nation's most notable landmarks completely destroyed. And as you can see, broken glass, turned over podiums, and Stop the Steal posters fill the hallways of the Senate wing, even after the angry mob has filtered out.
FBI, the CIA are working for the KGB and getting in my way. Cause they don't like my politics, they dog me every day. I'm getting tired of telling them the problem is the enemy is communism. I want to be an extremist.
The FBI is asking for help identifying the Trump supporters who rioted on Capitol Hill January 6th. But they aren't going after Antifa and Black Lives Matter terrorists who rioted for 7 months, looting and burning down small businesses in city after city, destroying people's livelihoods. The FBI is a corrupt organization which has been completely infiltrated by the KGB and Mossad. They allow left-wing terrorist organizations to operate in order to destabilize America from within. Some people don't think that Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization. Well, let's examine that.
And the reason we're here today, the reason the family's here today, is to talk about this beautiful life of this wonderful 24-year-old mother of a 3-year-old fiance who had her whole life in front of her. And because she said all lives matter, she was assassinated. And that needs to be addressed.
Back in July in Indiana, a woman was shot dead for saying all lives matter. Jessica Doty Whitaker was murdered by a group of Black Lives Matter terrorists simply because she disagreed with them. Her 3-year-old son now has to grow up without his mother. Back in August in Aurora, a man shouted, "Black Lives Matter," before viciously stabbing a white man who was walking his dog. Steve Sinclair has been arrested and charged with attempted murder. The victim of this hate crime suffered severe injuries, including a collapsed lung.
Oh, dang!
The person laughing and filming as the white man was hit in the head with a brick uploaded that video onto Instagram and wrote, "Hashtag white lives do not matter. Hashtag Black Lives Matter." This hate crime happened back in August in Baltimore, and the attacker Kenneth Burke has been arrested and charged with attempted murder.
Black Lives Matter, nigga. So fuck around with you, nigga. Get off me, nigga.
Is this airway clear?
Back in August in Portland, Black Lives Matter terrorist Marquise Love nearly beat a random white man to death, then was sentenced to only 20 months in prison for this hate crime. He was given a very lenient sentence despite having a lengthy rap sheet. Multnomah County District Attorney Mike Schmidt is the one who prosecuted Marquise, and one of his main goals is to reduce incarceration. He plays a big role in the ongoing violence in Portland. The police are doing their jobs arresting Antifa, but the problem is Schmidt keeps releasing them without bail. They get out of jail, then riot again the next night.
Officer, I want this fucker arrested.
Black Lives Matter.
Get out of here, bro. Put your hands on him.
Get out of here.
That woman pepper spraying a man she disagreed with is a Black Lives Matter organizer named Tatiana Turner. This happened back in September in Yorba Linda, and that's not all she did. Later that day, she deliberately ran over Trump supporters and was charged with attempted murder and assault with a deadly weapon. Orange County Sheriff's Office Sergeant Dennis Breckner said Turner chose that route and that it wasn't her only avenue of escape. You'll see in the next clip that the Trump supporters didn't hit her car until after she drove into them.
One male adult, and he suffered 2 broken legs. One female adult, and she suffered moderate injuries.
That Black Lives Matter terrorist who sucker punched a Trump supporter walking away is also a child sex offender recently released from prison. In November in Washington, D.C., during the Million MAGA March, Kenneth Wayne DeBerry was charged with aggravated assault, disorderly conduct through inciting violence, and being a felon in possession of a handgun. The woman who kicked the Trump supporter while he was unconscious was another Black Lives Matter terrorist named Brittany McAllister. She's also on video assaulting another person at the rally who appeared to be minding their own business.
Hey, what the fuck? Right there, that cunt. Fucking don't rush.
Donald Trump is the most pro-Jewish president in the history of the United States of America. But Marxists all over social media constantly frame him as a white supremacist. A lot of the Black Lives Matter activists are not that intelligent, so they believe this. Then they go on to assault and even murder random white people. Back in August in Birmingham, a man murdered a female trucker, then claimed that Trump made him kill a white lady. Charles Levester Gibson was charged with the murder of Christine Summers, who was also someone's grandmother. She had Trump 2020 written on the back of her tractor trailer, and it looks like that is what motivated Gibson to commit this hate crime. State Bureau of Investigation agent Vincent Cunningham testified that arresting officers reported that Gibson was sweating profusely and made spontaneous statements about killing a white woman, and that President Trump made him do it. Officer Hickey said Gibson seemed to be very disgruntled with our race. As a white person, he felt we were there to hurt him. Hickey also said Gibson called them white motherfuckers and said he wanted to kill us.
Well, this was a premeditated, brutal assault, according to court testimony. Javon Hatchett was at home perusing the internet, looking at social media accounts of police brutality, when he decided to go looking for a random white man to butcher.
You swear affirmative testimony will be the truth.
A police sergeant testified Javon Hatchett greeted him with a smile at his home a short distance away from the AutoZone and readily confessed to stabbing an employee there. The 19-year-old suspect was captured on surveillance video coming and then fleeing the scene. Law enforcement was tipped off immediately after those images were made public. The sergeant told the judge Hatchett was enraged after watching police incidents on social media and singled out the AutoZone worker because he was white.
Back in August in Columbus, a Black Lives Matter terrorist stabbed an AutoZone employee 7 times, then told police he felt the need to find a white male to kill. Even after confessing what his intentions were, Javon Hatchett was not charged with attempted murder. He was only charged with aggravated assault and possession of a weapon during the commission of a crime. He committed this hate crime after watching videos of police shootings online. Black Lives Matter is inciting violence. The police usually kill more unarmed white people than unarmed black people, despite the fact that black people commit the majority of violent crimes. Black Lives Matter will only show videos of police hurting black people, then claim that black people are the ones being unfairly targeted, which is clearly a lie. Then many of them will call for revenge against random white people.
And I got to say, God damn it, if you kill one of ours, it's time for us to kill one of yours.
That is blatantly terrorism, and the FBI never went after that Black Lives Matter member in Kenosha. The FBI is allowing Black Lives Matter to incite violence, which is leading to murder. Back in September in Louisville, Black Lives Matter terrorist Michael Rhines Jr. went to a restaurant and randomly shot 3 people sitting at a table. 2 of the men who died were white and 1 was black, so this wasn't considered a hate crime. But Rhines was a Black Lives Matter activist. Here he is with a shirt that says, "I'll stand for the anthem when the anthem stands for me." He murdered 3 people in cold blood, yet the mainstream media is silent on this. Meanwhile, Kyle Rittenhouse is on video shooting 3 violent criminals in self-defense, then the mainstream media frames him as a white supremacist terrorist and demonizes him non-stop. Rhines was wearing a Colin Kaepernick shirt during his shooting that said, "Freedom." Black people are free in America. They have the same rights as whites, Asians, Hispanics, etc. But since George Floyd's death and the Black Lives Matter movement erupting, we've been hearing about slavery non-stop, and this has actually furthered racial tensions and increased violence. Back in June in the Bronx, Tamar Bishop raped a white woman, then said that she deserved it because of slavery. All these hate crimes I showed you in this video happened after George Floyd's death, where Black Lives Matter was inciting so much hatred towards white people. And even some black people are pointing this out.
So I get on the internet, and just the last 2 days I see hundreds and thousands of videos of white people being beat up by black people, especially the video in Macy's of the Macy's employee getting beat up by a black person for literally no reason whatsoever except to make a viral video. And in New York with Bill de Blasio and his area, where all these Black Lives Matter rioters, all these evil, ridiculously stupid black people who are racist, are throwing all these fireworks into people's houses and setting houses on fire. I'm sick of it. This has nothing to do with George Floyd. It's been an entire fucking month. If you want a civil war, just say so. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to deal with you people right now. And I say you people because you are no longer my people. You call me a coon, call me whatever you fucking want, call me Uncle Tom. I'm tired of this shit. I'm tired of seeing my country get burned to the ground just because you hate white people. Just because all the celebrities tell you, go ahead and burn down all this shit. We'll pay for your bail. So we can blame Donald Trump and saying Donald Trump has no control over America. America's burning down because, nah. America's burning down because you're burning down America. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump. I'm tired of this bullshit. It's not fair. You don't get to burn down America just because you don't like Donald Trump. This has nothing to do with George Floyd. It has everything to do with politics. You just don't want Donald Trump to be president. You want to fucking go? Let's go. Oh, you're going to take down this post and my account's going to get banned because I'm inciting violence. You've been doing fucking violence this entire month.
We stand at a critical point in history. Give black people their rights, or we will burn this country to ashes.
That was Hawk Newsom, chairman of Black Lives Matter Greater New York, threatening to burn the country to ashes. He has publicly said that multiple times, and Black Lives Matter has burned multiple cities. Yet the FBI is not going after him. Instead, they are going after Trump supporters acting like idiots. Yes, some of them did commit vandalism and attack officers. I don't care if those ones are arrested, but you have to arrest Black Lives Matter terrorists as well. We keep hearing about white privilege. Well, who's the one that has the privilege here? Newsom said, "Give black people their rights or we will burn this country to ashes." Black people already have more privileges than white people in America. The Justice Department's investigation found that many universities and colleges discriminate against white and Asian American students in violation of civil rights law. Through affirmative action, these schools deny admission to white and Asian students specifically because of their race, then grant admission to black students with lower grades. That's not fair. If this were the other way around, we all know it would be called racism. Some black students also receive free education by programs like the United Negro College Fund, and now there's a new one. Bethel University launched the George Floyd Scholarship, where they are awarding free tuition specifically for black students. Several universities and colleges are also now embracing the George Floyd Scholarship. This is clearly privilege. Yet Black Lives Matter is threatening to burn down the country if they are not given more free things. This is not about racial equality. This is about narcissism. Antifa and Black Lives Matter terrorists have caused over $1 billion in property damage. Meanwhile, the FBI doesn't give a shit, nor does the Department of Homeland Security. Despite all the destruction caused by Antifa and Black Lives Matter, in September, the DHS declared white supremacists the greatest terror threat facing America. Before people try to call me biased, I'm sure there are some cases of hate crimes committed by whites against blacks, but there is no white identity movement terrorizing black folks. That is not allowed. However, the DHS and FBI allow Black Lives Matter to terrorize white folks and destroy federal property. The Nelson Mandela Foundation urged Black Lives Matter to engage in carefully targeted violent acts. They actually wrote this on their own website back in June. Quote, "The use of violence can be rational and carefully targeted as part of a strategy to counter structural and other forms of violence against black lives. And of course, it ought always to be so." They claim that more than 1,000 black people die at the hands of the police in the US every year. That is a lie, as we went into earlier. The Nelson Mandela Foundation is deliberately lying in order to incite violence in America. Quote, "Now is the time for sober assessment of a resilient white supremacy in our country, in the US and globally. We need to reckon with the fact that structural and other forms of violence will provoke violence." Now let's take a look at the FBI's definition of domestic terrorism. Violent criminal acts committed by individuals and or groups to further ideological goals stemming from domestic influences such as those of a political, religious, social, racial, or environmental nature. The Nelson Mandela Foundation clearly incited Black Lives Matter to commit terrorism, and they have burned multiple cities and destroyed at least 43 monuments this year. Yet the FBI has never prosecuted the Nelson Mandela Foundation. They are only pursuing Trump supporters who rioted for one day on Capitol Hill. This video might sound like I'm defending Trump supporters. I'm not. I just think it's insane that a national security organization allows left-wing terrorist organizations backed by foreign intelligence agencies to commit endless violence. Nelson Mandela was a communist terrorist trained by and received $80 million a year from Moscow. His party's military commander, Joe Slovo, was a colonel in the KGB. Slovo was also very open about his love for Russia. The founders of Black Lives Matter, Alicia Garza, Patrisse Cullors, and Opal Tometi all work for front groups of the Freedom Road Socialist Organization. The FRSO openly works to strengthen Russia's geopolitical interests. After Russia invaded Ukraine, the FRSO held a rally calling for no US intervention in Ukraine. They also promoted Kremlin propaganda on their signs saying, "Crimea has spoken." There will be some haters in the comment section calling me a shill and claiming that Russia is innocent. Here's Russian state-controlled media promoting Black Lives Matter and spreading some of the most outrageous lies in order to stir up civil unrest. The radical left keeps saying, "Oh, imagine what would happen if the protesters were black." Black Lives Matter has been rioting for 7 months and not a single rioter was killed by police. But the moment white conservatives start rioting, one of them gets shot. It wasn't just Russian intelligence that was involved. Israeli intelligence asset Jacob Wall was also there to stir up the crowd. In the past, Mossad child trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell paid him $25,000 to smear Epstein's victims. A lot of people online believe that only Israel is destroying America from within and that Russia is innocent. That's not accurate. Russia and Israel are both ideologically subverting America. Now here's convicted terrorist Susan Rosenberg, who is currently on Black Lives Matter's fundraising board. In the 70s and 80s, she was in the May 19th Communist Organization. She was charged with being involved in the 1983 bombings of the Capitol Hill building. Sound familiar? Rosenberg was sentenced to 58 years in prison in 1984 for explosives possession, but was released on January 20, 2001, with her sentence being commuted by outgoing President Bill Clinton. Clinton released her at Congressman Jerry Nadler's request. According to Nadler's rabbi, he played a crucial role in Clinton's decision to commute Rosenberg's sentence. Not only did Nadler help free a left-wing terrorist back then, but today he's also covering up Antifa's violence.
It is true. There's violence across the whole country. Do you disavow the violence from Antifa that's happening in Portland right now? There's riots.
That's a myth that's being spread only in Washington, D.C.
About Antifa in Portland?
Yes.
Sir, there's videos everywhere online. There's fires and riots. They're throwing fireworks at federal officers. DHS is there. Look online. It gets crazy, Mr. Nadler.
So it's not just the FBI. The ruling class of America is also helping communist terrorists get away with endless violence. And the hypocrisy is just insane. Nadler helped free Rosenberg after she bombed the Capitol building in 1983. But now he's trying to impeach Trump for inciting a riot at the same Capitol building. He said, "What this country endured yesterday was beyond intolerable. Domestic terrorists stormed the Capitol, breached the Senate chamber, waved Confederate flags in the halls of democracy, and disrupted the operations of the House and the Senate as they worked to ratify the election that President Trump tried so hard to undermine. Members of Congress hid under chairs, wearing gas masks, and were ushered from room to room by armed guards trying to ensure their safety. In the wake of this deadly attack on the Capitol, in the face of this insurrection, We must act. Now, this is not necessarily about Trump. This is a part of a larger plot to designate right-wing white men as terrorists, as well as anyone else who opposes what the ruling class is doing. Meanwhile, communist terrorists will still be given free rein to make your life a living hell. I'm gonna get into that and more about Capitol Hill in part 2 coming soon.
The Black Lives Movement, Black Lives Matter movement started with your very own case of Trayvon Martin, correct?
Is that your conjecture, sir? Or you...
No, I'm not conjecturing, I'm asking. It's a question.
First of all, they're terrorists. It's not a movement, as you have said now. That I see them as terrorists, if you'd like to address them correctly.
I'm just asking, here's a question mark.
I don't believe Black Lives Matter is a movement, sir. They're terrorist cowards.